Welcome. I'm Barbara Marcum, the Director of Senior Resources for the City of Westland. With me, I have Dr. Alzohaili, who's an endocrinologist from Garden City Hospital, and we're here to talk a little bit about endocrinology. And let me tell you, I am fascinated by the field of study. There are some little tiny glands in our bodies that control a variety of things, more things than we know. So tell us a little bit about your background and why you chose this field, and then let's touch on what those organs are that have such an influence over many things in our lives.
Thank you, Barbara, for having me, and thank you for saying my name right. That's not an easy one. So endocrinology is very fascinating. I probably from day one in medical school, I want to do endocrinology. It is interesting. I think it controls almost everything in the body. It's the least understood and researched system of the body, unfortunately. But we have a master gland. We have the hypothalamus, part of the brain, that take sensors, all the information that we have in our body, and give orders to another gland called pituitary gland. All these are in the brain. Now, pituitary gland sends order to multiple other glands. A thyroid gland that control metabolism, energy, weight. Adrenal gland that control blood pressure, blood sugar, also energy. It sends order to the ovaries and the testicles that control the sex hormones for females and males. There's part of the endocrine gland also that is the pancreas that produces insulin. And insulin is very important for diabetes, and there's a whole area by itself. So it's very complex, and it's, again, the least understood of the systems. One of the reasons that made me interested is fascinated by the studies, how less research. And I thought maybe getting into this, you'll have an open mind, you'll start to research it more and try to help more people understanding this field.
It is absolutely fascinating. Like you said, I mean, as technology goes on, but to me, you know, it's almost like the heart. It's really a huge system. I mean, and it's like it's very complicated. I'm surprised there aren't more studies because, like you said, all those glands control everything. They're sending messages all over the body. And I really am surprised that there isn't more done. I think maybe in the future, I think maybe that we're just recognizing the influence of all of these glands, and I hope to see more research comes from that.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about what they control. So like specifically like mood and stress. What happens? Do these glands actually just all work together? And then what happens when something happens? How does it upset things?
So we have a system that is, we call the feedback. It's like a sensor. Mm-hmm. Now our sensor is the brain. All the information gets to the brain. There's an area of the brain where I say to the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus it's the mood, the hormones, stress, sleep, weight, pain, movement. All of these actions are taken action in that controlled by the hypothalamus. Now the hypothalamus, based on sensing what is Barbara doing, what is she supposed to do, what is her usual activity, how much hormone she needs when she's doing this particular activity. It senses that, store that information, and give particular orders. And the orders has to be, we call it pulsatile fashion. It's not like, okay, here's a whole load of hormones and deal with it. No, it tells exactly how much hormone, when, and how to secrete it. It gives orders, and the orders go all over the body. So now the body is ready to handle this. Now you're ready, you have the stress hormone coming, you need more cortisol. There's something going on, you need more growth hormone. You need the more estrogen, more progesterone, prolactin. There's the hormones of emotion. There's the hormones that are changed in pregnancy, the hormones that change when you have a child, how breastfeeding the child. All of these are controlled by the endocrine organs. Now, some people think that the heart is actually an endocrine organ because the way the heart functions, a lot of these arrhythmia of the heart, it may be connected to hormonal changes. We know for sure thyroid can affect the heart. Too much thyroid can cause heart problem. Not enough thyroid can cause heart problem, but I think it's beyond that. I think all pituitary hormones control the heart. So our functions, our muscles, our bone, our energy, our sleep I think is controlled by these hormonal changes.
So the hypothalamus is kind of the mastermind. Everything starts there.
Yes.
Okay, so I have a question for you. This may seem odd, but what is a hormone? Is it a signal or is it actually a fluid? What is it?
So hormones are peptide, they are chemical structure. So the brain connect to each other with the different ways, the electrical or chemical, acetylcholine. So these synapses touch each other and talk to each other. The hormones are different. The hormones are chemical structure. What they do, they are secreted by the gland that we then call them endocrine glands because they secrete hormone directly into the blood.
Okay.
So they go directly in the blood. The hormone floats in the blood and goes where it's supposed to.
To a receptor.
A receptor. There's a place who's sitting there ready. I'm waiting for the thyroid hormone. I'm waiting for the growth hormone. I'm waiting for estrogen. So that receptor, as soon as a hormone comes, grab it. And different hormones work in the different places on these receptors. As soon as they attach to the receptor, they trigger a chemical reaction in that cells. So that chemical reaction can be production of thyroid hormones, can be production of estrogen, progesterone, and then all these hormones do their jobs in the cells. So it is a chemical that sometimes we miss and we don't have enough. And the problem is when you have too much of that chemical, there's a problem. If you don't have enough of that chemical structure, there's a problem.
Because I know too, even the brain, every sentence and experience causes a chemical change in the brain, the way that we think. What happens when something goes wrong? I mean, obviously people have problems. And when, say, they're depressed, or there's a problem with their weight, or something's not functioning correctly, how do you find that out if there's a problem within the endocrine system?
It's a great question because endocrine system sometimes function in a dynamic fashion. So you produce hormones at a different time of the day. We have circadian rhythm. We have hormones that are high in the morning, then very low at night. So people who work night shift or afternoon shift, they lose circadian rhythm
or
and
they're blind.
Yeah, their physical manifestation of that can be really bad. Their health not as healthy as people who actually sleep on time, wake up on time, and eat on time. So these circadian rhythm are one function. The other functions are the response to situation. So hormones are produced in a dynamic fashion. Sometimes a doctor can make a mistake. They draw blood at one single view and say, oh, your thyroid is fine, this is fine, your pituitary is fine, your hormones are fine. They're not. The only way we can really test the endocrine glands are by doing dynamic testing. I want to see, is your pituitary gland or adrenal gland or thyroid gland is able to respond to stress? If I stress your body in a simulated testing, so we usually put an IV, stress your body with the different things, and then we draw blood every half hour. See, is your body able to produce hormones on demand or not? This is the perfect way of checking the endocrine system. A lot of mistakes happen. A lot of patients come to me and tell me, I've been seeing doctor after doctor, and they check my blood work, and it's always normal, and I feel miserable. Because you only check in one look at one time. That doesn't give you much. A snapshot. Snapshot does not give you the whole picture. When we get the whole picture, then we can tell if the endocrine system is working fine. Because it's supposed to be perfect. We see sometimes girls who are athletes who go and exercise, and they stop having period. What does exercise have to do with period? Girls who have situation where they're stressed in college, they stop having periods. Men who become obese, their testosterone goes down, the sperm count goes down. So what's the connection of obesity to sperm count? So it's so connected. It's so connected. It's the body act in a way, it changes in weight, in sleep, in mood, have a significant impact on our hormones. If we don't understand their connection, it's very hard. Unfortunately, sometimes when I see people, what we try to treat is treat these symptoms. And I see people who are on like 10 different psych medicine, and the baseline of their issue is one endocrine organ. We fix it, they stop all the 10 different pain medicine, sleep medicine, anxiety medicine, depression medicine. Nothing makes me happier than actually stopping all of that, because we find the problem. But you have to do the right test.
So it's kind of like the endocrine system is responsible for the fight or flight. That when there's a stress or something
yes.
big, then they say, "Wow, we got to do this," and then they go to work.
Yes.
Well, and what you're telling me makes so much sense, and that's why I'm wondering, other doctors who don't study endocrinology, like you said, they have a snapshot view of what's going on. They look at the things, everything's normal. How do they know when to refer a patient to an endocrinologist? What triggers wow, this might be that problem?
Unfortunately, most doctors don't do it. The only way they do it with actually they have a previous experience.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened, they will have a difficult patient, they can't fix it, nothing happens. Oh, let me refer
I've
to
tried
endocrine.
everything.
Tried everything. So most of the time people come to me as a last resort. So when they have tried everything, seen all different kind of specialties, they come to us, and then we find out, and they go back to their doctor, oh, you're doing better. So that particular doctor now knows how to refer a second patient. But in terms of education for these physicians or other specialty that really don't understand endocrine very well.
I know that the body is very, very complicated. We don't know a lot about it, but I would say because of the interaction and all of the things it controls, that it might be one of the first things that doctors would look at. And you're right, they probably don't have the training, and that their specialty isn't in that area, so they wouldn't know. But let me ask you a question. For example, you were talking about circadian rhythm, and that's our natural internal clock that tells us time to get up, time. How important how important is it to sleep? And how does sleep affect the endocrine system? Does it calm everything? Are we doing ourselves a favor by sleeping a certain number of hours every night? Does that affect the endocrine system?
Absolutely. That's again a great question, because circadian rhythm, one of the things people don't understand is circadian rhythm is based on light, not based on time.
Okay.
So if you work 8-hour shift overnight and you sleep 16 hours during the day, you're as bad as somebody who doesn't sleep at all. It is the circadian rhythm is based on light. So in order for it to work perfectly, we are sleeping overnight, up to 8 hours. That'd be perfect time, but it has to be from 10, 11 o'clock at night till 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. That's a perfect within that time frame. Because at 5 o'clock in the morning, our hormone will start to go up. They peak at 9. So at 9 o'clock, when you are going to work, when you need to do something, when you're up and running and wants to do stuff, your hormones are at peak.
And everybody thinks it's coffee.
Yeah, it is.
It's natural.
Unfortunately, most of the time is we don't sleep very well. Our hormones are not very well, and that's why we need a lot of coffee and speed and all that stuff in actually to function. So the circadian rhythm start going down. By the end of the day, they go down to almost zero production of hormones at night. And
when does it start to go down?
Will start going down by 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
A lot of people feel like they need a nap during that time.
Exactly. And then really go down by at midnight to almost zero. That's how our body functions. If we work that way, our body gets that rest overnight. Now what happens is cortisol, growth hormone, all these stress hormones, they go down, so the body is relaxed, will sleep better. Now, anything that will disturb this cycle is going to have higher cortisol. So instead of having stress levels, we're going to have levels that are high all the time. And that leads to obesity, insulin resistance, diabetes, and all different kind of issues, including depression, because our hormones are off. And once cortisol is affected, it affects the hypothalamus, it affects the pituitary gland hormone. And once you lose the circadian rhythm, it is very difficult to bring it back. And it's a very difficult life for you.
Yeah, and now that you mention that, I know people have worked afternoons and things, and they end up still, even 10 years after retiring, are still on an odd schedule. They just can't get it right. They're used to being up all night and sleeping all day, and it really does throw them off for a lifetime. Really, they never get back to the sleeping all night. All right, how important? Okay, so sleep is really important. This is something that I do. That's why I'm asking. What about people who fall asleep with the television on? I watch the news and then often wake up, and then it's unfortunately cable news show, so it's news all the time. I'll wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, hear something, wide awake, listening to the news, 2 hours, then I go back to sleep again. And I think this is not good. It isn't good, is it?
Not good. It is not anything that disturbs the sleep. That's why eating late at night that make you wake up because of stomach ache or acid. Too much coffee or caffeine before you go to bed will make you up. Watching news and being concerned about it, stressed all about it, that make you up. Drinking a lot of water that will make you wake up to go to the bathroom. All of these habits affect your sleep. And if you don't have the really nice cycle of REM sleep, then the hormones are affected. Then you will wake up. A lot of people say, I wake up and I just want to go back to bed. I don't have any energy. The number one question my patient asks me for the last 15 years, I wake up and I don't have energy. And I think a lot of it because of the effect of these hormones in the sleep.
Okay, so what is the best thing somebody can do for themselves? It's nighttime. The circadian rhythm is at its low. All your hormones are quiet. What time is a good time to go to bed? Like you said, with the light, it's caused by exposure to light. So how do people get a good night's sleep? They don't eat. They don't drink a lot of fluids before bed. Don't drink coffee. I also heard people think alcohol is good. Well, I'll take something, a drink with alcohol in it will help me sleep. I hear that that's absolutely not true. It actually causes unnatural sleep patterns.
Yes, so I think the best thing is don't eat. Try to have dinner maybe 6, 7 o'clock. Try not to have anything after that. Have a water, probably just more here. Anything, any substance, because 90% of people have reflux disease, and even alcohol or anything. Oh,
that's a lot. I didn't know.
And then they're anything they eat at night, they will get the reflux symptoms and then affect their sleep. So try not to do them much at night. And again, there's a whole sleep education by itself. You really have to look at her. And the last thing, if nothing works, you need to see sleep specialist, and you have to maybe go to medication, at least for short term, to get your cycle back, and then hopefully you don't need it anymore, not on the long run. But it's one of these important things.
Well, we've been doing a lot of community education on diabetes. So I'd like to focus for a few minutes on how the endocrine system, what it has to do with the actual disease. So if you can explain that a little bit so our viewers will understand. I know the pancreas is part of that. And so how does the endocrine system affect diabetes?
It's a very complex system, so that's why we're actually losing in a way the battle on diabetes. So pancreas has several parts of it. There's the exocrine part. That's the one that produces the digestive enzymes. So when we eat, we need the enzymes to digest food. But there's a small part of the pancreas that produce glucagon and insulin, proinsulin, and amylin. 4 different hormones, not only insulin. All these hormones are produced in an endocrine fashion as a response to change in the sugar level in the blood.
Okay.
So anything that will affect the sugar level, eating, stress, circadian rhythm, hormones, medication, it will affect the secretion of insulin. So we have 2 kinds of diabetes. One kind is an autoimmune disease. Antibodies attack the pancreas, kill all the insulin producing cells, and makes you in need of insulin all your life. Either you need beta cell, or you need pancreas, or you need insulin 4 or 5 shots a day, or insulin pump. This is the less common diabetes, 10% of diabetes. 9% of diabetes is the type 2. This is the one that is rampant all over the world. The numbers going higher and higher and higher. This is the one connected more to food, more obesity, more type 2 diabetes. When the food we eat, especially the processed carbohydrates, are the most poisonous food ever invented, I think, in history of food.
And what are those specifically? Just so
anything you will see that is called enriched flavors, white. So white sugar, white flour,
white bread, white noodles,
bread,
white.
All of these here, you really have to go back and see, okay, how much fructose, how much high fructose corn syrup they have. Corn syrup, amount of carbohydrates. A lot of people are looking at sugar when they say, oh, I didn't eat a lot of sugar. But people forget that carbohydrates are complex sugar. They all turn to sugar. And you can have a natural carbohydrates. You can have natural fats like nuts and good food. But when we start getting into these boxed food, in a way, most of the nutrition tell you anything come in a box, it's probably not good for you. Because most of the time, there's so many additives that you don't know about. Unfortunately, all the changes in the way we eat, plus the way we sleep, and we are less active.
Yeah, sedentary lifestyle.
All of that turning into more obesity and now more type 2 diabetes. Now, the insulin produced by the pancreas as a response to the blood sugar, and it's very sensitive. It tells exactly how much I ate and give you enough insulin to cover it. And it give me all day and then enough with meals. Problem if you overwork your pancreas, especially if you have the genetic background for it. If you overwork your pancreas says, you know, I can't give you that excess insulin every time. You really have to change one of two things. Either be more active or eat less. Otherwise, I don't have enough insulin for you for the rest of your life. And what happened, people, they do okay, and the pancreas is overworked, produce a lot of insulin, and that really causes a lot of problem for the body. Eventually, pancreas say, I don't have enough insulin, now the sugars are high, now you have diabetes, and you have to take medication, you have to do all of this. There's 32 million diabetic in this country, there's 98 million pre-diabetic. There's 98 million are just one step away from diabetes. Either they surrender to that by, you know what, I'm going to have it anyway, let me eat and have fun, and they become diabetic, which we're going to have a really health crisis in this country if we have 100 million diabetic. Or 98 million diabetic, you know what, we need to do better. We need to shift to normal, and that easily can be done. Right education, activity, increase in the muscle mass, you know, get all of that program. When you do it, you can shift 98 million to normal instead of shifting them into diabetes. We have that huge number of people. Now you need to know what kind of exercise you need, what kind of food you need to eat. You need all the help that you can. Unfortunately, there's so many misinformation out there.
Right.
So you need to know, trust your doctor, get the information. I think programs like this are great. I think diabetes educations in the hospital are a great program. Unfortunately, most hospitals are losing that program because it's not making money for them, which is really important on a national level, on a state level. We really have to work on this because either we have to deal with a 98 million diabetic and spend trillions of dollars saving
on the complications alone.
Absolutely,
I mean, look, amputations and all of the things, blindness, all the things that can come from it. When people realize we can change this, it's not, I mean, I think a lot of people think because they don't feel the effects, they go on.
I'm fine.
But yes, but once they realize that there's an issue, I think just knowing the truth, the right things, eat whole foods, if you can buy them natural at the store, you know, and knowing what to do makes a huge difference on people's choices. Many of them just don't know. But our young people now sit for hours on devices. I mean, we used to go out and build forts and, you know, see you when the street lights come on, and we were all over the place. But children aren't doing that, and it's bad that we're moving in that direction. But with our children even, how can parents make the right choices for their children starting early?
It's a really important question because talking about having these number of millions, we see now type 2 diabetes used to be an adult disease.
Right.
Now 25% of diabetes in children less than 15 years old are type 2 diabetes. If I tell you this 10, 15 years ago, you say this guy's crazy. Now it's the true number. I have 5 years old with new onset type 2 diabetes, something that would never happen before. Because of obesity, the way you eat. Unfortunately, it's part of education, shows, TV, games, school, parents. There's so many people have to work together to get us out of this. And I think the choices of food, but also in the food industry, what kind of food is provided to us, I think it's all added to that problem. So it's very difficult for the parents to work with the child. They really have to know, don't have this bad poisonous food available in your house. You know, if your child can have it in school, but at least in your house,
Yeah, if
give
it's
that
not-
example. You're not having that bad food,
Right. If it's
and then
not there, they don't eat it.
Yep, and slowly the children learn that, you know what, I'm getting used to these natural good food. Unfortunately, parents sometimes surrender to the will of their children, and they just give them whatever they want because they don't want to deal with it. And then find ways to get them active, exercising, put them different program, go out with them, and be active with them. And it's not easy work.
You know, I mean, at the risk of sounding like a sexist, okay, I think a lot of things changed when women, I really respect homemakers, and that they supply good meals. And, you know, I remember my mom, every dinner at 6:30, our family would sit down and eat together, and she didn't stop at, I mean, on occasion, I mean, once every year or something, we'd get Kentucky Fried Chicken or something, but basically, of course, she was a home ec teacher too, so she knew about nutrition. But when people are working 2 jobs and everybody's doing this, and the kids have soccer and theater practice and dance and everything going on, and mom works a job and dad works a job, you know, sometimes we have to think about, and this is true for everything that we do in life, we have to prioritize and make eating good foods a priority, and I think very few of us do that. Absolutely. And when, you know, we realize how important that really is to how we live and everything that our body needs, I think there may be a change with that awareness, and I'm hoping, just like you, coming on the show and making things so easy to understand, I think might make a big difference. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I thank you for taking the time to come on the show today, and I hope we can do another interview in the future, because I know there's a lot of things that we didn't cover that people really need to understand. And I thank you so much for your ability to do public education, because I think it's much needed.
Thank you very much. It was great to have me here in the show, and I think this particular education is so needed everywhere, because just people not getting that, but what they get in messages is quick access to food, and eat whatever available to you, and because it's not causing anything now to you.
If you don't have
but it's
good
gonna have
food,
a problem
you're going to
10 years
eat
from
whatever's
now. Yeah.
there. We all know that.
Yes.
So we have to take the time to make that different.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being here
Thank
today.
you. Thank you. Yeah.
And thank you, friends in the viewing audience, for being with us today.